In this video, we're going to look at variables in a bit more detail because there are a few things related to variables that if we don't know could cause problems with our programs. Let's go ahead and kick things off by creating a brand new file for this one. Inside of basics, I'm going to call this one variables.js, and we are going to kick things off by defining a variable let. I'm going to call this one something like pet name. And we're going to set it equal to our pet name. Mine's Hal. If you don't have a pet, you can just make one up. So we have this variable. What happens if we try to define pet name again? Let pet name. Let's say we want to change it over to a different name, like a dog called Spot. Now we want to print pet name with console.log. In parentheses, pet name. What's going to happen here? Well, this is actually invalid JavaScript. You can't define a variable that you've already defined. Here, I've used let twice to define pet name twice. That is invalid. And we can prove it by running the script. Over in the terminal, node, variables.js. When I run it, once again, we get a really long error message. Now, this error message contains a lot of useful information. We can see that the error is on variables.js line 2. It even shows us the part of the line where the error is occurring, and then we have our message. It's a syntax error. Identifier pet name has already been declared. This is letting us know that we're trying to define pet name, but it's already in use, so we actually can't define that. Now we could call this something else like pet name with two E's. That is valid. We now have two different variables. But what if we did really want to change the value for pet name? Well, we can do that right here. We can remove that line and replace it with the following. Pet name equals the string Spot. Here we are assigning a new value to the existing variable. I'm not trying to define pet name again. Instead, I'm just assigning it a new value, and this is perfectly valid. So while I can't use let twice to define a variable twice, it's okay to reassign a variable's value later. That's super common. So now our program is going to work as expected. We are going to run the script, and right here I get Spot printing. We start off with the pet name of Hal. I switch it over to Spot, and in the end of the day, when we print it, the value is Spot, and that's what we're seeing. This is the first rule I wanted to explore related to variables in JavaScript. So rule number 1, you can't define a variable more than once. You can define it once, you can change it over time, but I can't use let with the same name twice. The next thing I want to talk about is what makes up the variable name itself. So down below, rule number 2, there are rules related to variable names. This means that you can't use anything you want as a variable name. Let me illustrate with a quick example. Let 3 equal 2. Then let result equal 3 plus 4. What is the end result of this value going to be? Am I going to get 3 plus 4, which is going to be 7, or is it going to try to get the variable 3, whose value is 2, where I would get 2 plus 4, and the result would be 6? JavaScript is not going to be able to figure that out. It doesn't know if you want to use the variable 3 or the number 3, so what it does is it makes numbers invalid as the first character in variable names. JavaScript cannot parse this out. So here are the rules for naming variables. Your variable name has to start with a letter, A through Z, capital or lowercase. It can also start with two special characters, the $sign and the underscore. That is it. So letters, $_. After that first character, you can introduce numbers if you like. It just can't be the first character. So a valid variable name could be A followed by the number 1 followed by the $sign. An invalid variable name would be 1 followed by M. The letter would need to come first if you wanted to use a number in a variable name. Another invalid variable name would be test with an exclamation mark. We can't use all symbols in variable names. We can only use the $sign or the underscore character. So keep that in mind as you're naming your variables in JavaScript. It's going to come up over and over again, and it can be a source of confusion early on. Your program might not work for some reason, and it might not be clear why. Just one more rule, and this one is a quick one right here. Number 3, variable names cannot be reserved keywords. So in every language, there are certain words used in the language that have a very special meaning. There are tons of them in JavaScript, and we're going to learn about them as we move through the course. For now, we just know about one, which is let. When we use let, it does something special. This is a reserved keyword. That means we cannot use it as a variable name. So let equal the number 12 is not valid. We cannot use the reserved keyword, though I could change this to let with 2 L's and that would work. It just can't match up with the reserved keyword exactly. You're not going to run into this one too much. It's pretty easy to avoid, especially when you start to drill these into your brain as parts of the language. But I did want to point it out because it is possible that it will come up down the line if you try to create a variable name using something that we haven't talked about just yet. All right, that's where we're going to stop for this one. There is no challenge in this video because the next video is a challenge video where you're going to use everything we've learned so far to create a little temperature converter. I'm really excited to get to that, so let's go ahead and jump right in.